And welcome back, everyone. This is For Azeroth, the podcast all about World of Warcraft. I'm Garrett Weinzierl. She's Jocelyn Moffett, and welcome back, Joss.
Hello, Garrett. How are you?
I am. I'm getting the anxiousness. I don't know. Like I'm getting the BlizzCon butterflies, Joss, because It's Monday when we're recording this. I am getting on a plane in 2 days.
I know. Me too. So we're both flying in on Wednesday, right?
Yeah. So I get in super late.
Yeah,
Wednesday. So I won't probably be down to Anaheim until after midnight. So
I'm not quite that late.
Okay.
I think I land around like 9 or 10 o'clock on Wednesday.
Yeah. So when you see me on Thursday, I will have survived off of a delicious dinner, extremely healthy, of In-N-Out burger.
Ah, good.
So yeah, we'll get the rental car, grab some In-N-Out, and drive down to Anaheim. But oh man, I'm excited. Also, we're recording this on Halloween, so happy Hallows End to everyone out there.
I know. Happy Halloween / Hallows End / all of it. Oh man, I can't believe it's actually Halloween today. It doesn't feel very Halloween-y.
No, it doesn't. Also, my last Halloween was my actual wedding, so this feels super weird.
Maybe that's why this year seems so boring. Is like last year on Halloween, I was like in Florida partying with my friends and, wedding things. And now this year I'm just like, huh. All right.
It's just the calm before BlizzCon.
Exactly.
That's all it is this year. But yeah, so have you actually partaken in Hallows End in game this year? Have you done much?
Hallows End is actually probably my favorite holiday in Warcraft. I love going around to all the different cities and all the little like settlements and encampments and stuff, and going to the inns and getting the candy and stuff. I love it. It's so much fun, and especially when you get like randomly tricked and turned into stuff and get costumes, and I love Hallows End. It's so great. And then you've got like the whole Wicker Man and everything.
Yeah.
So good.
Well, this is going to be boring because it's my favorite too. I have no counterpoint to anything you just mentioned. I'm not going to go to bat for any of the other holidays in WoW. There's plenty of fun ones. I'm not saying the others are bad.
The Christmas one is good too. Winterveil is really fun too. But Hallows End I think is my favorite.
Doesn't like throwing snowballs at people. Katie recently started playing again. So we took a look in her bank. She has snowballs from, I believe, the second Christmas ever in World of Warcraft.
And they haven't melted yet? Wow, that's impressive.
No, yeah, she had tons of those. She had like from the pre-Lich King launch event, the weird Scourgestone stuff laying around in there. Hunter arrows, even though she wasn't playing a hunter. Like so many random things. It was.
She probably thought that those were going to be worth like mad money on the auction house at some point. Or something.
I guess, I don't know that, and she used to quest with me, and I originally played a hunter, so she probably that was probably great. I'm not sitting through another outing where Garrett forgot ammo, so yeah, I don't know exactly what happened in there, but yeah, it was highly entertaining looking through her original tunes bank because there was some. It was a World of Warcraft museum.
A time capsule.
yeah, it was awesome. But yeah, no, I'm a big Hallows End fan. It's Hallows End is special for me, not just because I got married on Halloween, but when I started playing WoW, it was during October. So like I logged in, started my first character, there were pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns everywhere, and it was just like, oh man, this is cool. And I had just come from Guild Wars, so two things were apparent to me that blew my mind. A, they celebrated holidays and dressed it up, which was really cool. And B, I had a jump button. So that was really cool.
Yeah, I really like all the like green flame creepy candles and stuff, and all the decorations and all the cities. Also the Hallows End world boss, or I guess not really world boss, but the Hallows End boss is super fun. He's so campy. He's the headless horseman, and the stuff that he says is all rhymey and just I love him. I think he's so fun, and the fact that he shows up in the actual world as well, and does all those, like, he tries to set the towns on fire, and you have to do all those little mini events. It's a great holiday. It's one of the ones that they really did go all out for, so it makes me really happy. I like Hallows End a lot.
Yeah, it's a good time. But hey, getting back to BlizzCon, I don't know how to say it. I'm surprisingly excited to find out that Christian Nairn is DJing the BlizzCon anniversary party the first night.
I did not realize that he had DJ skills, but I'm looking forward to meeting him.
You didn't know that? Yeah. He is apparently a well-known DJ.
Huh.
He's well known
Good
for
get
his
for
DJing
them
skills.
then.
Yeah. So we're gonna get to dance to the sick jams that Hodor is putting out.
And this is actually going to be, this is the anniversary party is out in that big place where they had all the food carts, right? So
yes,
this
yeah,
is like,
it's in the main plaza. It's this grand central plaza. It's, if you go during off hours, it's just this big area, kind of like a park you can walk through. But anyone can go. You don't need a BlizzCon pass. It's an open party happening from 8 to 10. And they did this 2 years ago for the WoW anniversary, or just the Warcraft anniversary in general. And that was a lot of fun, and it's sounding like this is pretty much the exact same thing. They even have the same band coming. The only real new thing is that the themed beers, I'm sure, will be celebrating new anniversaries and not Warcrafts, and we'll have Hodor DJing.
yeah.
So if you're local and you don't have a BlizzCon pass, this is a great way to get in on the BlizzCon fun.
Yeah, there's also a lot of people I know that go to BlizzCon just for kind of like the fan events and all the stuff surrounding it. They don't necessarily go to the con proper. So anyone hanging out in guild halls or, just hanging out in general, this is a great thing to do. And you said it's from 8 to 10 p.m. Is that Friday, Saturday?
Friday night.
Friday night? Cool.
Yep.
So
Yep,
right
so
in the
this
middle.
Friday.
That's great.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm excited. I'm just the more like now that Extra Life is over, we did Extra Life this past weekend. It's done. Now I can focus on BlizzCon with like 3 days before BlizzCon, so I don't even have all the like big waiting anxiety because I had something else right before. So now I just have like, oh my God, I have to get everything done, and then I'm going to be on a plane in 2 days, and this is great. Like there's no like big long lead up for me.
Yeah, it's just get things done. So
yeah, it's just like happening now. Boom, done.
So we've talked about on Angry Chicken what we want to see, what we're hoping to see at BlizzCon. Kyle and I talked on Into the Nexus what we're hoping to see in regards to heroes. So Jocelyn, what are we hoping to what are we hoping to see on the World of Warcraft side of things?
I don't necessarily know what I'm hoping to see, but I know what we're probably going to see is going to be 7.2 stuff. I think we're a year ahead in terms of a new expansion announcements. I don't think we're going to see, the next expansion, unfortunately. I mean, how cool would it be if they just walked out on stage and went like, so you're loving Legion? Well, guess what? In 6 months, here's our new expansion.
Oh, God, that would be too soon. That would
I
be
know.
the first time in my life I would ever say too soon in regards to anything Blizzard puts out.
But I feel like there's been so much content in Legion that people were even saying that 7.1 was like really, really fast and brought a lot of changes and brought a lot more new content before they were done with all the old stuff. So, I mean, they're stepping up their game. How cool would that be?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that would be the big surprise, right? But I'm with you. I think the safe assumption is, we're going to see stuff about the next raid and any ancillary content that is coming with the Nighthold.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited just to see how the world is going to change and what's going to happen in terms of just the Nightborn in general. I find it interesting that that's supposed to be the last raid content of the expansion, right? Like the Nighthold is the last raid. So that makes me really interested to know how the rest of Legion is going to proceed, like where that storyline is going to go. Because if the last big raid that we're doing is the Nighthold and we're going up against Gul'dan, like what's happening to the rest of the Legion? Even if they lose Gul'dan, like there's still this huge invasion presence in Azeroth. So that makes me think, like, is the next expansion going to be us still dealing with the Legion on Azeroth, or is the next expansion going to be potentially like us going to Argus? Are we all going to get in spaceships and go and fight the War of the Light?
Yeah. We're getting a
yeah.
little ahead, but we're going to talk for lore today. We're talking Turalyon and Alleria because it's impossible not to talk about one without the other. But that's kind of where my head is. It's like, are we going to go join it? Are we joining the Army of the Light? All of us, even Death Knights, are we invited? Or does an entire class just get left out?
Well, I mean, and well, again, we'll probably touch on this a little bit later, but in the paladin/priest class hall questing, like in your order hall quest line, part of it you actually see and I'm going to totally butcher this name, but the Nathrazim guys, like basically like the big demons that become Death Lords.
Mm-hmm.
They've actually been the ones that didn't join the Legion have been infused with the light, and they actually fight for the Army of the Light. So I think there is definite precedent.
You see a religious Death Lord, which
exactly.
is just blowing my mind in so many ways and making me think I maybe abandoned my Paladin a little too soon because I didn't get to see that in game.
Oh, God, it's so good.
It was spoiled for me while I was researching Turalyon and Alleria today. But yeah, it's, oh boy. That's so cool. What a cool thing. But we'll talk about more of that when we get to lore. That's what we're hoping.
My point is that there is definitely precedent for previously evil, or I guess Death Knights, they were risen by Arthas. I think we can call them evil before they got a mind of their own.
Oh, so. I'm not. I think we're still evil. I mean, some of the stuff we have done in Legion has been awful. The fact that Mograine is going, like, every time I go back to him, he's just like, oh, I don't know, man. Oh, Azeroth is gonna be so mad at us for doing this, but if you're the Death Lord, your word is will, so go for it. But you're gonna make everyone angry. Like, the fact that Mograine is has hesitation, considering a lot of the stuff the Death Knights do throughout their Order Hall quest line. I think we still are evil, and I'm happy to be evil, man. I wouldn't play Death Knight if I wanted to be good.
So yeah, I think precedent for having evil creatures in the Army of the Light is definitely there. So I think you guys are good. I think we'll bring you along. Chat room is saying Nighthold is not the last raid in the expansion. It's just the first tier, and they said 3 raid tiers. Okay, so this is where I kind of get a little bit confused, because we've already got Emerald Nightmare. Yep. And then we've got this kind of mini raid in between with the Trial of Valor, and then there's Nighthold. So I thought that was the 3. But I'm pleasantly surprised if we're going to get more raid content, because
Trial of Valor, I don't think is like a full-on new tier. Like, you're not getting a whole new tier set. I believe
it's kind of an in-betweeny.
Right. But last raid in this okay, it's just the first real tier. Okay, well.
Yeah, I thought that I'd seen somewhere that Nighthold was the end of it, which is why I was so confused. I
think I might be getting that.
Maybe it's the end of like 7 point, like the original Suramar story. Like, I guess the 7.0 raid content, even though technically it's like 7.1.
That's what I think I'm getting it mixed up with, which is the end of the kind of the original Suramar arc. Mm-hmm. But I think that the big thing is what you're kind of hitting on is we're not sure where the story's going from here. We know we're going to fight Gul'dan, and Nighthold is going to get away yet again. I find that hard to believe.
No, I think we're gonna defeat him. I would hope. I think Gul'dan's story is really it's come to the end of its arc. I think I don't want him to be the constantly ha ha ha, disappear, get away, poof in a puff of smoke and he's gone type of a character. I would really like this to be the end, and possibly see some of the demons we've defeated in the past who have huge roles in the Legion. I would like to maybe see them. Possibly, maybe if there's some sort of infusing a vessel with spirits like we've seen with Illidan, maybe that's how Sargeras comes into our world. Because I swear to God, if we fight the Titan Sargeras, I'm going to be so mad, because he should just be able to literally squish us. He destroys planets, so there's no way that he can be, I think, a satisfactory raid boss. But if there's some sort of spirit of Sargeras type of a battle, or he's in a mortal vessel or something like that, kind of like how he was possessing Medivh for a while. If we have some sort of boss fight that's like that, I can get behind that. But I definitely can't get behind us actually fighting Sargeras.
Yeah, I don't know. They'll have to get clever, right?
Yes, exactly.
And that's where I'm just trying to figure out where Gul'dan goes from here, because there's kind of 2 options, I think, for being satisfying. We either finally kill him, or he ascends to some greater level than he is now. Mm-hmm. Becomes Super Gul'dan, or I don't know.
Super Gul'dan.
It's gold spiky hair and yells
even
a lot.
More felon-fueled Gul'dan, kind of like from the Warcraft movie, big muscly, rawr Gul'dan.
Yeah, I mean, he was the most jacked hobo I've ever seen in the film. Yeah. But I'm anxious to see.
I think we're going to see more information about Nighthold, and then maybe possibly have some sort of story spoilers going forward, because I'm really happy to hear that Nighthold is not the end of the raid content for Legion, and so that makes me think that possibly we might have an Argus raid, or something along those lines, a raid of Legion, probably where they've actually landed on Azeroth. We're probably going to actually close the portal. And then once we've actually closed the Tomb of Sargeras, then I think we'll take the fight to them and go to Argus. And that could be our next couple of raid tiers. So that's exciting. There's so much more to come. And I think that's probably what we're going to see at BlizzCon out of the Warcraft team. And, obviously, outside of the story, they've got all the other little stuff that goes along with that. We've seen even with 7.1 coming, new faction and all the pets that go along with that. And there's so much stuff outside of raiding that comes with all of these patches. So we finally found out how to unlock the new faction. Do you want to tell us about that?
We did. Those are kind of the two big things this week. Or we figured out, now that 7.1 is live, how to unlock Talon's Vengeance and also how to summon Nightbane in Kazan. And I'm sure some people will consider that a spoiler, so maybe don't listen to this. I don't know. How else are you going to figure it out? One step at a time, I guess, like whoever the first person was to figure it out. But anyways, yeah, so we know how to get our hatchling pets and even the mount at this point. So one, you have to get your hatchling, and they come from specific world quests, of which there are 4 types, because there are 4 types of hatchlings, but they all follow the same naming convention. So you're going to see something like Sharp Talon Swarm or Direbeak Swarm, or 2 others that end in Swarm and whatever type of hatchling it's for. So when they appear, you can go and you have to defeat a matriarch of that type of Falcosaur. Still not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But
I think so. Falcosaur. Yeah.
Yeah, but once you kill that matriarch, one of the hatchlings will spawn. There's now an orphan hatchling, because way to go, hero, you killed the mother.
This is my favorite part of Battle Pets. I can't remember if I mentioned it on the show before, but there's a really good comic from Mary Varn, and it's basically her rogue Warcraft character like killing a raptor and then pulling the battle pet from its dead corpse, yep. And then hugging it, being like, "Yay, I got a battle pet!" And then it's the shot from over the shoulder of the little raptor baby, like single tear.
We're pretty much doing that all over again, but now with raptors that have beaks instead of teeth.
Yes, exactly.
Anyway, so once we have our orphaned hatchling, to get it to become our battle pet, we have to feed it. And there are 4 unique foods sold from vendors in Dalaran for the 4 unique hatchlings.
So this is the piece of the puzzle that I was missing, because I kept doing these world quests and finding the matriarch, and I was like, yes, okay, battle pet time. And so I killed the matriarch, and then I'm like, where the heck is my battle pet? And I never found the orphan, and I didn't have the food. So I was totally missing gigantic steps of this questing.
Yeah, well, the food, I believe you pick up the orphaned hatchling first and then start feeding. I don't think you have to have the food on your body.
No, you actually have to have the food on you, because you can't interact with the orphan until you have the food to give it. So it'll like come up with one of those little gear things when you have the proper food. So if you actually look in your pet journal, you can see all the pets you don't own yet. So the Falcosaurs are in there, and their tooltip will actually give you hints as to what food you should be buying for which pet. So I think one of them says like loves the smell of pungent cheese or something like that, and then one of the foods in Dalaran is like Valkyr's pungent something. So you just have to kind of pay attention to those tooltips, and then or you could just buy all the food in Dalaran, and then whatever you don't use after you have your 4 Falcosaurs, then you can just sell back.
Or you could just go to a fan site and look up exactly which food you need. Or I could tell you need Azunian grapes for the Bloodgazer, you need pungent Vrykul Gamalost for Direbeak, you need dry bilberries for Sharp Talon, and you need smoked Elderhorn for Snowfeather. There. No reading of tooltips for you. You can just listen to my sultry voice.
So apparently Garrett is just the no fun, no RP haver.
I mean, I do believe last week I outed myself as someone who doesn't particularly get into battle pets all that much. So really the only thing I care about here is the mount. So
yes, you're going to have to care a whole lot about battle pets in order to get this mount. There
I know.
are 4 new mounts, 1 of each model, and you have to do a whole hell of a lot. You have to level them to 25. You have to do a whole bunch of stuff like kill dungeon and raid bosses, do PvP, world quests. You're going to love those pets, Garrett.
I'm not getting this mount. I'm just not happening.
Well, I'm getting these mounts. I'm excited about it.
I just don't want a pet battle. I don't want to do it. It's not my jam. But yeah.
I bet, though, actually, come to think of it, these may be available to sell on the auction house. So they're probably going to be extraordinarily expensive. But you can buy battle pets on the auction house that have been pre-leveled. So some people actually level pets to 25, cage them, and put them on the auction house. And then you don't have to do that big, long 25 grind.
Well, if someone would like to trade for an inordinate amount of Fell Slate, let me know what your inordinate number is, and I'll gladly go and get all the Fell Slate for you.
I'm not 100% sure because they do have quests tied to them, but generally if there's drops or anything, you can't sell wild pets, but you can sell things that are like drops from bosses and dungeons and stuff like that. So also things from the shop. All that kind of stuff can be caged and sold in the auction house. So where this is kind of a new method for getting a pet, I'm not sure which camp they fall in, tradable or non-tradable. So, but you can, look them up on the auction house and see if there's any there, because that could be a way to skip some of your leveling.
Oh, don't worry,
Another tip I would say, anytime there is like a level pet to 25 achievement, you don't get it if you just open the pet at 25. So maybe look for one that's 23 or 24 and just get that last little piece of XP to get the credit for the quest.
Okay, gotcha. But yeah, so that's the next part, is the quest line. You have a quest line for your hatchling, and part of that quest line is getting them to 25.
Yes.
And when you complete that quest line, you actually get the ultimate battle training stone, which instantly trains any battle pet to gain 25 levels. Then it goes away once you've used it. But you can get this 4 times from leveling the 4 unique hatchlings. So that is part of the quest you will need to do to get your mount. But at the end of the quest line, you get your mount, and then apparently, Jocelyn, we can go and show off our mount to Aviana.
That makes sense. And then, so this is the faction that we were talking about last week, that Aviana and the vendor were tied to the faction somehow, and it rewards a lot of really cool PvP rewards. So I'm glad, like, it's a real long attunement, basically, to open up this faction, but I think it's great. I'm glad that they're doing a lot more in-game along the lines of attunement, because they kind of stopped doing that for a little while. So they seem to be doing attunement, but attunement that is fun. So we see it with Kazan, because you have to do a whole bunch of mythic dungeons and stuff leading into unlocking Kazan, the new raid, not raid, 5-man raid, like more difficult, more and longer than normal dungeons, but not quite an actual raid, not a 10 to 25 man raid. So you have to do a little bit of attunement for that to kind of prove that you're ready to go in. And then now we have attunement for a faction. And I think, as someone who likes pet battling, that this is a really cool way to do it, that it's kind of like a world quest into, you know, leveling and doing really cool things with battle pets, kind of like you do with your orphans during Children's Week. You know, you bring them along for your PvP adventures and have to have them out.
When I think of showing a child, you know, the beauties of the world and raising them right, I think murdering hundreds of people in front of them.
Exactly.
Well, as someone who's not super into pet battles, I'm going to have to get clever with this. And I'm also learning from the chat room that you need at least one pet at level 25 if you want to buy pets at level 25.
Yes.
So, oh boy.
Do you not even have one battle pet?
No, I don't.
Oh.
I have done it. I did it once, and I was like, this is crazy time consuming, and there's other crazy time consuming things in this game I would rather be doing. It's not that I think it is bad. It's that is not the game I come to WoW to play. They have literally built a phenomenal version of Pokemon within World of Warcraft. It's a wonderful accomplishment, and they should be proud. It's not why I'm playing WoW.
Yeah, I think I did a lot of pet battling at the end of Mists of Pandaria, I think, was kind of when I got into it. So I didn't do a lot in Draenor at all. I didn't collect anything. I don't even think I collected all the wild battle pets in Draenor, just because I was spending all my time PvPing. But now they've made pet battling more rewarding outside of just pet battling. Like, it used to be like you pet battled for the sake of pet battling to level all your pets and to collect them all and do that kind of stuff. But now, you know, like, they're tying factions to that, they're tying mounts to that, they're bringing it more into the fold and giving people who like other things outside of pet battles in World of Warcraft, like yourself, Garrett, they're giving you more of a reason to go and try out and invest some time in this system that they've built, because it is quite robust and the pets are adorable.
Yeah, but
there's so many cool little pet models.
Yeah, I mean, I like collecting pets, but not for pet battles, because back in my day there wasn't any pet battles, and they were just vanity pets, and I
Yeah.
loved them, and I collected as many as I could. And now there's a ton of them behind this wall of pet battles, and I'm just like, yeah, this has gone too far. This is my personal breaking point. I'd rather be raiding or PvPing or running dungeons.
So speaking of running dungeons, we did find out, officially confirmed, Nightbane is the final boss, which, you know, was like the worst kept secret.
It's not. He's not the final boss. He's an extra boss.
Or the bonus boss.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he's an extra boss,
Kazan.
just like he was in the original Kazan. He was an optional, semi-hidden boss, and so is the case with the new Nightbane.
The reason that I called him the final boss is because Nightbane does actually drop the best loot in Kazan. He is I believe his gear starts at 875. His drops start at 875, which is I think 5 to 10 item levels above the rest of the bosses in Kazan. So but he's significantly better gear.
Yeah, but lore wise, he's not really the final boss. But yeah.
Ooh, so Garrett talking lore wise and Jocelyn talking eye levels. We're backwards.
This is why I like doing shows with you. We can change roles on the fly. Except who's into pet battles and who is not. That will forever be Jocelyn gives a darn. Garrett's like, oh darn, he can't get another pet he wants because he has to actually play Pokemon. But yeah, so summoning Nightbane is crazy in the new Kazan. Once you zone in, you have 8 minutes. Count them, 8 minutes, Jocelyn, to click the Opera Hall Soul Fragment. And once you've done that, clicking on this first fragment gives you Medivh's Echo, which lasts 8 minutes. Then you need to click the Banquet Hall Soul Fragment, the Guest Chamber Soul Fragment, the Servant Quarters Soul Fragment, and the Curator Soul Fragment. Once you click all of those crystals, they add another stack of Medivh's Echo and extends the buff duration by 5 minutes. And if you don't make it to these crystals in time, you lose. You don't get to summon Nightbane. However, if you do click them in time, you gain Medivh's presence, and you have 5 minutes to get to Medivh and summon Nightbane. And then once Nightbane's summoned, you can just try him to your heart's content. You can die in a fire constantly, which I'm sure is what I'll be doing the first time I actually summon this guy. But if you do successfully take him down, as Jocelyn said, you get some of the best gear available to you in Kazan. But the thing I care the most about is the Smoldering Ember Worm mount, of which only one drops per Nightbane kill. But I have to remind everyone, Kazan is only a 5-man this time. That's good odds. That's good odds, and it is. And I haven't run it yet. I'm still working on my attunement. We're all busy preparing for BlizzCon, so our group hasn't been able to get together, get attuned, and actually attempt it. But everyone I've talked to says it's extremely hard, and I will only be running this with friends. So we'll just be rolling until all 5 of us have it, I think, is how this will work.
Yeah, and I think so. If you already have it, so if I already have, say I'm super lucky and I get the mount drop week 1, if I run with the same group of 5 next week, does that mean that I no longer have a chance to get the drop? Because I know it's personal loot, so it's soulbound, which is the same way that, for instance, the Hallow's End Horseman mount works. Like, you can't trade it to anyone in your party, because I've had a couple of mounts drop when I've been doing these kind of world event bosses. And
I hadn't considered that.
You know, people are like, oh man, I already have this mount, but I can't trade it. This is crappy. And it's like, oh, it's so frustrating to see it pop up in a chat window and someone go, oh, I already have this. And I'm like, I've been trying for years.
Yeah, I don't know, because I mean, if it's one of...
that would really suck. You know, if you think like you run with the same 5 people over 5 weeks of time, that's going to eventually get everyone their mount. But if it's locked the way some of the other things are, then each time you go in, you still have the same chance to get the mount or not, even if you're with the same people or different people. So
Right.
I would hope that once you get the mount, it locks you out, but I don't know if they've actually built that into the game, because it doesn't seem like they have at this point in any other instance where there's a boss who has a drop like this. So
Well, Joss, I'm sure it's going to be a little while before we can actually make this timer, so
That's true.
we will figure it out way later than most of the people who are really good at this game.
I do think that this is really cool. This is almost like, because a lot of people are talking about how, although Kazan is mythic and is extraordinarily challenging, it doesn't have keystones the way other dungeons have keystones to do the whole Mythic Plus thing. So basically, that's what this sounds to me like it is it's a way to increase the difficulty of the dungeon without actually increasing anything or having to really build anything in. Basically, it's just giving you a timer, which is one of the big parts of Mythic Plus, is that timer piece. So I think the Opera Hall, is that the second boss or is that the first boss? I can't remember.
You're asking me things off the top of my head that I do not have the answer to.
Because it's really funny that you have 8 minutes to get through and defeat the Opera Hall. That's really fast.
Yeah. Let's see. Opera Hall looks like Opera Hall's the first.
Okay, that would make sense, because so you have 8 minutes to get in, to navigate the dungeon, kill the trash, and kill the first boss in order to start this attunement. So
yeah, things have been the order of bosses has been remixed significantly.
Right, because the Opera Hall was not the first boss when you went into Old Kara.
Not even close.
Okay.
No, but now it is, followed by Maiden of Virtue, then Morose, and then Ottoman, who used to be the first boss. So things are all switched around.
Which I think is kind of good, because you want it to feel the same but different, right? You don't want to just have the exact same experience going through the Kazan dungeon that you did going through the raid. So I think this is really cool, and I love the idea of a timer and the go and getting a group together that is your like specific Kazan dungeon running team. I can't wait to get attuned to this, because I haven't had a lot of time with all the extra life prep this last week. So I'm excited to get into Warcraft. Hopefully tonight, do a little bit of some mythic dungeons and get in there before BlizzCon. But I can't believe I'm still so excited. And Garrett and I were talking about this before the show. I can't believe I'm so excited about this show, about everything happening in Warcraft and everything else. And we're literally days away from BlizzCon, guys. Like, usually the time before BlizzCon is like radio silence. There's no news. Everything's all quiet and hush hush. Nothing's going on. The Warcraft team is just like hitting it out of the park with Legion. It's just like constant updates, constant content. Things are happening. Like, I still can't believe we got 7.1 right before BlizzCon. This is just insanity.
Yeah, no. I'm completely with you. I mean, in terms of like news, things we didn't know that it's now new to us. There isn't a whole lot. We knew 7.1 was coming. We knew what was coming with 7.1. It's just figuring out how to do some of the things, like getting your hatchling pets, like summoning Nightbane. That's the things that it's exciting, and we're learning as part of the community leading into BlizzCon. But you're right. The pacing for Legion has been fantastic. We're 2 months past now the launch of it, and I'm still extremely into it. My biggest complaint is that I just need more time to play the game. That's the worst issue I've had, which I haven't had with the last few World of Warcraft expansions, because I haven't had nearly as big of a drive to play the game.
Yeah.
And this is the most that this is the closest I have felt to Burning Crusade or Lich King, which for me was the most that I played the game. So it's
that's good. I think it's a good problem to have. It's a good problem for the Warcraft team's fans to have, that there's so much going on in the game that their biggest complaint is, I don't have enough time to experience all this content.
Yeah, my biggest complaint is the other Blizzard teams are doing good jobs too and make me want to play those games as well. So
right.
That's about it. It's like, damn it, well, I still want to play Hearthstone. I still want to play Heroes of the Storm. Diablo is fine. Okay, you haven't done anything new. Thank you for kind of being boring for the first time in a while. So anyways, let's talk lore. We're going to be doing a lore segment for every one of these episodes, and this week we were going to cover Turalyon, and then as soon as you started writing about Turalyon, Jocelyn, you're like, well, you can't really talk about Turalyon without Alleria, so we're doing both of them, which sounds dirty. We're going to discuss both Turalyon and Alleria.
These are two of my favorite characters from the World of Warcraft, or I guess not really the World of Warcraft, but Warcraft.
The world of Warcraft, not necessarily the MMO.
Exactly, because we haven't actually seen these two heroes since pre-World of Warcraft days. These are characters from I believe Warcraft 2 in the Second War.
Yes, yeah, Warcraft 2 and Warcraft 2's expansion Beyond the Dark Portal.
Yes, and there's actually 2 books of the same name, Tides of Darkness, which I believe was an expansion or something for Warcraft 2. And then there was also Beyond the Dark Portal. Both of those are novels, and that's where I was first introduced to these characters. And so obviously in the novels, their stories and not necessarily stories, but definitely personalities are much more fleshed out. And so we see Turalyon and Alleria alongside Khadgar doing a lot of just ridiculously heroic things. We've got, first of all, Turalyon, who was the High General under Anduin Lothar, who, those of you who've seen the Warcraft movie, you'll probably remember him. He was kind of a right-hand man to King Lane, who ends up dying at the end of the movie.
Spoiler.
Yeah, spoiler. Okay, if you are listening to a Warcraft podcast and you have not seen the Warcraft movie yet, I don't feel sorry for you if you don't know the story of King Lane. Because this is also, that's a spoiler from a game. Like, when did Warcraft 1 come out? 25 years ago? I refuse to accept your spoiler alert.
I'm so happy that you were the one tirading and not I, for a change. Yeah, it's also a safe assumption, by the way, guys, that when we say we are now moving to our lore segment, that it is just a spoiler alert. We're going to talk about anything and everything that pertains to the subject at hand, in this case, Turalyon and Alleria. Yes, you're absolutely right. Lothar was portrayed in the Warcraft movie by a living, breathing actor whose name is eluding me because I don't watch Vikings.
But yeah, so Anduin Lothar takes over the army after the death of King Lane, and Turalyon is his kind of right-hand man. And he was also, Turalyon was handpicked to become one of the first 5 paladins alongside people like Uther and Tyrion. So, like real big name, awesome paladin characters.
This is this is ground zero for the paladin order. This was before it was really a thing, before 10 to 20 million players, depending on what time of World of Warcraft's history was playing, were all rolling paladins potentially. This wasn't the case. These were the 5 before there used to not be paladins, and he was one of the 5 that made it so that there are now paladins. They branched off from a sect of priests.
Exactly. So they're basically ridiculously strong warriors who also have a incredibly strong faith in the light. And so they are a combination of those two kind of characters. And he was one of these great warriors who was chosen then to become a paladin. So he, I guess, Garrett, this part comes from you. He was having some trouble being a paladin.
Yes, as a matter of it's funny you bring up that they're strong in their faith in the light. Turalyon actually had the weakest faith of the paladins. Uther was known for just being a badass, just wielding the light like no one had ever seen. And Turalyon paled in comparison to Uther because he had a lack of faith in the light, and it was because of what he had seen the orcs do. He basically, the existence of orcs made him question his own belief in the power of the light. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until Lothar's death at the hand of Orgrim that he got his faith back, pretty much. Orgrim yelled something to the effect, I don't know the exact quote, but something of, we will keep doing this until this world is ours. And that reminded him that, these are not creatures of Azeroth. This is not their world. And that maybe the whole reason that they're even allowed to exist in the first place is that they're not really involved in the light. The light is supposed to, it's basically the Force from Star Wars. It's basically any religious faith you can think of that brings with it power. And they believe that it binds all of the beings of Azeroth together, basically. And so he's like, well, they're not from Azeroth, so the light should just smite them horribly. And he literally started glowing. They were in Blackrock. He the light emitting from him, it's written that it blinded the orcs. It bleached the Blackrock white, and he just kicked everyone's ass.
Yes, and I think this is also kind of a really telling point in his character, because he sees his kind of best friend and idol, Anduin Lothar, struck down by Orgrim, and then Lothar's sword is broken. Turalyon picks up the sword and charges at Orgrim and defeats him in battle, like Garrett mentioned, with the finally getting the light on his side.
Yeah, does not kill Orgrim, though. Knocks him out.
Exactly. So this is the part of the character development for Turalyon that I think is so important, is that he doesn't kill Orgrim, even though he is so angry at the death of his friend and he is grieving. He actually arrests Orgrim. And this is the start of the orcs in the internment camps, which is then kind of setting up Thrall's story. But it shows such strength of character for Turalyon not to kill, even though they're in the middle of a war, they're in the middle of combat, for him to stay his hand and not kill the orc and instead imprison them for trials for their crimes against humanity and their crimes against the light, I think it's such a turning point and such a powerful section of, at least for me, the book. So I can't remember. I don't know how much of it was actually put in game, but in terms of just from a novel reader perspective, it was such a turning point. And it was such a great passage to read.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll frequently see images of Turalyon where he is wielding a broken sword, and that is the broken sword of Anduin Lothar's that he picked up after he died.
Yes, and I believe actually his statue in Stormwind is actually, he is holding the broken sword.
He is.
So it is very iconic. See, guys, I know Alliance things.
I know. Yeah, you know Alliance things because you had to walk past there before you killed our king in cold blood, you vicious murderer.
Exactly.
It's okay. I killed Thrall at least 3 times when he was war chief.
Ooh, brutal. So, like we mentioned off the top, we can't talk about Turalyon without talking about Alleria, who is his wife. So the high elf she is a high elf. She's the sister of Verisa and Sylvanas. So Verisa, you might remember, she is the wife of Ronan, who is unfortunately now deceased because of the actions of the Horde. And Sylvanas is obviously the Banshee Queen of the Undead, the Forsaken. And she is also now war chief of the Horde. So Alleria has some very powerful sisters, and she is, not unpowerful herself. She is a great warrior. She was Ranger General during the siege of Calthalos, and she actually defied the orders of the other high elves living at Calthalos. And when the Alliance of Lordaeron came to them for help, she basically said, "Screw you guys, I'm going to go help," because she recognized the threat that the orcs posed to Azeroth. So she actually took her elven rangers, went down to South Shore, and met Turalyon while defending Azeroth from the Horde.
Yeah, she doesn't really wield magic or anything of the sort, correct? She's kind of like Legolas. She's just an amazing warrior.
Yes,
extremely lethal with a bow.
She is a hunter. Yeah, she's a hunter.
Extremely lethal with a bow, not bad with a sword either.
Yes. So she's one of those super fierce leaders and ridiculously accurate with her bow. And so basically the Horde moved north and ended up attacking Calthalos, and unfortunately Alleria decided to stay behind to defend the city, and her brother went out in a raiding party and was actually killed, and so she goes real dark. And so she goes on a path of vengeance.
But not before getting, friendly with Turalyon in her grief.
Yes.
And getting pregnant and bearing a half-elf son who is now a well-known paladin in World of Warcraft, Eretor the Redeemer, who, if you're playing Legion right now, you see him hanging out in your order hall quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's actually a really cool interaction between, because we're going to talk a little bit later on about their reappearance in Legion, but there's actually a section in the Paladin Order Hall and kind of scene between Eretor and Turalyon, because there's a message for Eretor in Light's Heart, which I thought was a really great addition, because the first time that we actually meet Eretor is in Burning Crusade, and he's essentially looking for his father. So it's really great that they put that extra little piece in there. There's a lot of Turalyon story in the Paladin Order Hall quest lines. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But if you haven't rolled a Paladin, there's some really cool stuff in that class Order Hall quest line, like Garrett was mentioning about the Death Knights. There's just so much that's going on in these Order Hall quest lines that even though running a lot of alts in Legion can be a little bit punishing, even just going through and doing your Order Hall stuff, I think is worth it. Even if after you're done your Order Hall questing, then you don't play that character again, seeing the side of those stories is really, really important, because they've done a lot of work in some of these in these lore bits, including, like I said, the story with Turalyon and Eretor in the Paladin Order Hall.
It's my favorite stuff in Legion so far.
Yeah, the Order Hall stuff?
The Order Hall campaigns, because I've only done Paladin and Death Knight at this point, but it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've really been enjoying it. So sorry, we skipped ahead to Legion a little bit there, but yeah. So Alleria and Turalyon did have a half-elf son. He's one of the only half-elves in the game. Although also Verisa, who is her sister, has twins with Ronan. So there's a couple of half elves, but most of note I think is Eretor, because Verisa and Ronan's children are still children.
The Windrunners are among the most progressive high elves.
Yes. So a couple years after the Second War, Khadgar comes to Alleria and Turalyon and basically say, "Oh no, the rift is widening. The orcs are coming back."
Well, the interesting point of note there is actually after they push the orcs back through the dark portal and destroy it, Turalyon and Alleria have a falling out.
Yes.
And Khadgar realizes that the portal is becoming active again, and he goes to Alleria and convinces her that, hey, you should go to Turalyon because we need him. We need an alliance army to go through the dark portal. You should be the one to do it. And then she wasn't stoked about it, but she did do it.
I find it really funny because you're going so down like the relationship
I find it fascinating.
And I'm like, war, we have to talk about the war.
No, I find it fascinating because, as you said, there's not very many humans who have caught the attraction of an elf.
Well, and you know what? Not only that, but there aren't that many just relationships in general in World of Warcraft. They tend to tell the story of war very well, but they don't often. I mean, we've got Jaina and Kalik, which is kind of the current, and we're not even 100% sure if they're even still a thing, but their relationship is more, although I guess same could be said for Alleria and Turalyon, but their relationship is explored in the novels more so in the games than in the game. The only real marriage or kind of courtship we've seen was Thrall and his wife. She starts with a D, Draka, maybe?
Draka.
Yeah. So, we haven't seen too many actual relationships in World of Warcraft. So I have such a tendency when I think of the lore to focus just on the war stuff because the relationship stuff seems so secondary, even though in this case I've read the books, like this is where I was introduced to them. But it's really funny that that's the way that I lean when retelling lore. And Garrett's like, whoa, they had a fight, Jocelyn. They were not friends.
I'm sure some people are screaming at their headphones right now. Draka is Thrall's mom.
Oh, what's his wife's name then?
It is eluding me as well now because now all I can think of is Agra.
Agra. Oh, okay.
Agra. That's what it was.
All orc names sound the same to me.
Racist.
I was gonna say, yeah, that was my total sarcasm voice. But yeah, so
I also
agree
with
you. Agra is, but that we actually saw that relationship develop. There were parts where he was struggling with his connection to the elements, and she helped him through all of that. We actually saw that happen in game, and then that whole quest line in Cataclysm culminates with their marriage in Mount Hyjal. So you actually that's the only relationship that we really see develop through to a marriage and now we don't even really see them at all ever.
No,
so.
I was also distinctly remember during that Hyjal line being just so annoyed. I'm just like, Thrall, you left a psycho in charge. I don't care about this.
Exactly. So yeah, the Alleria was brought to Turalyon by Khadgar. They had some sort of falling out, possibly around the fact that she was pregnant and had the son, and I'm sure that caused some sort of friction. And so basically, Ner'zhul has created. Well, he didn't create the Death Knights. Gul'dan created the Death Knights before the orcs were defeated on Azeroth and driven back through the portal. So now Ner'zhul is essentially building up an army again to reinvade Azeroth. And so the Alliance is trying to stop that. And so they are going back through the Dark Portal and onto Draenor. And they are led by Turalyon and Alleria. So, they fight a lot of battles on Draenor. They fall back in love.
Yeah, they literally sack Hellfire Citadel.
Yep.
They do some pretty badass things in there. But their love is rekindled while they're in there. And then it comes to a head where it gets to the point where Khadgar actually closes the Dark Portal for good for 18 years from Draenor's side. And that basically causes a cataclysm in Draenor. This is what creates the Outland that we know. And when that happens, it destroys the exit plan for Khadgar, for Turalyon, for Alleria, for every other poor Alliance sucker that is on the other side of the Dark Portal.
Well, and I think before we're too quick to blame Khadgar, I mean, there is also the fact that the creation of the Dark Portal was done by Ner'zhul, tapping into the ley lines of Draenor, much like we are currently learning in Legion about the ley lines in Azeroth, and it's basically like the lifeblood of the planet.
Well, it was originally Gul'dan working with Medivh. It was originally Gul'dan working with Medivh.
Originally, yes, but when Ner'zhul was reopening the portal, and when Khadgar then went to destroy it, he was pulling from all of the energy that held Draenor together, essentially. So when Khadgar destroyed that, it basically overloaded Ner'zhul, which caused the explosion of the planet. So because of the way that Ner'zhul had chosen to open the portal, or the things that he had to do in order to open the portal, when the portal was destroyed, it destroyed Draenor with it, which Khadgar didn't really have any way to kind of know. So I think it was too quick to just blame Khadgar.
I wasn't giving him a hard time. They understood, everyone who left knew the risks they were taking.
Exactly. So yeah, and this is actually when Ner'zhul's death occurs, is with the cataclysm that destroys Draenor, and this is when his soul becomes infused in the helm, and he becomes part of what turns into the Lich King. So this is when this sets Arthas' story.
There's so many connections in this little. It's hilarious when we do these lore segments, because there's so many things. Like in this, it's hard not to dive completely into the founding of the Silver Hand and the start of the Paladins. It's hard not to go into the war against Orgrim. It's hard not to talk about Ner'zhul in general. It's hard not to go into Arthas. It's hard not to go into Outland.
Well, and this is why I think Turalyon and Alleria is such an important story to tell, because their actions through these first and second wars are basically what sets off a whole bunch of things in motion. It sets off the shattering of Draenor, and that's, Burning Crusade and all the stuff that happens there. It sets off Ner'zhul's death and the path to the Lich King. And there are so many things that are driven by their actions that I think that they're really important to cover right off the bat when we're talking about Warcraft lore.
Yeah. Anyway, so to survive the Draenor cataclysm, Turalyon, Alleria, and I'm assuming everyone else stepped into a rift to another world that I'm pretty. All I could find was the description was they could barely comprehend it.
Which, I mean, to me, just basically sounds like the Twisting Nether. It's kind of this, like, it's a place that exists kind of in line with our universe, but it's different universes sort of thing. And so one of those things that you can't even really wrap your head around.
or was it Argus?
I don't know. I don't think
because it came back unharmed, so I would assume it wasn't Argus, but I don't know.
Basically, it's just like when Ner'zhul was opening the Dark Portal, he was pulling from energies that are basically bringing worlds closer together, and the opening of portals in general is the whole idea is they are taking space and bending it so that you can walk and go from one place to another by taking a step. So it's this whole bending of space and time, and so that's essentially what happened is that space and time were ripping apart as Draenor was destroyed, with all these portals being open to other different worlds. And so Turalyon and Alleria stepped into one to essentially get away from Draenor, which was exploding. And so they managed to survive, and they returned to Honorhold, which you actually can see in Burning Crusade when you first go into Outland. It's on Hellfire Peninsula. And then sometime in the 18 years between the Dark Portal being closed by Khadgar and the Burning Crusade, when the Dark Portal was reopened, they disappeared. So their whereabouts were unknown. There was, like we mentioned, a quest line with their son, Eretor, who essentially had gone to Hellfire Peninsula looking for his parents. And so they were just presumed dead. They were gone. So this is why I think that, like, they're such great heroes, and we hadn't seen them, but it had actually been teased that they were coming back on loading screens starting in Mists of Pandaria. There was, where the little tips pop up, there were little tips saying Turalyon and Alleria have not been seen for years and are presumed dead, all the way through until now, where it says Turalyon and Alleria have been lost for years until now. And those loading screens have persisted all the way through Mists of Pandaria, through Draenor, and into Legion, teasing the return of these two heroes. So,
the Blizzard team, or the WoW team, knew exactly where they were going with the story. So
Oh, for sure.
They were just messing with us. Yeah. So they since they disappeared in that point, they were just presumed dead. That's why we have massive statues of them erected in the entrance to Stormwind. But Turalyon has reappeared in Legion, like not in the flesh, but in the light to us. This happens when Khadgar first investigates Light's heart, which we talked about at nauseum last episode. So an image of Turalyon appears, and he is apparently leading the army of the light as High Exart, and it's mind-boggling. This is something we didn't even really know existed. So, is he still in mortal form at this point? Has he like ascended? Because we only see him represented in pure light.
Well, and this is kind of the thing, is that we don't exactly know. We haven't seen him in person in game yet, although there are kind of, I guess, I don't even know if you'd call them rumors or leaks or what, but both Turalyon and Alleria are supposed to appear in person at some point. So they will be in Legion somewhere, but as of right now, all we have seen is basically Turalyon's message, him talking to his son, him talking to Khadgar, but that's about it. So the other thing that we learn is that he has sent some of his forces, and this is in the Priest and Paladin class hall questing. It kind of culminates with a battle at Netherlight Temple, which is the Priest class order hall. And so the forces of the Army of the Light show up on a ship, which at first I thought was Prophet Velen. I thought that they had repaired the Exodar, and I thought that was him flying in, because you're fighting in the temple, and there's these big, huge windows, and you see this like Draenei ship, or it looks like a Draenei ship, flying in the background, and I'm like, oh my god, they fixed the Exodar. Prophet Velen is here to save us all. And it actually wasn't him. It was the forces of the Army of the Light. And so they come and they say that they were sent by Turalyon, and then they help you to defeat Balnazar. Anyways, one of the big bad demon dudes who essentially Turalyon has warned his son was coming specifically for the Paladin Order, because he was attempting to destroy everything that Turalyon held dear. So it was a really cool story. I highly recommend doing the Paladin Order Hall, especially if you have any kind of interest in Turalyon, because that's all we have as of now.
I need to finish the damn Paladin Order Hall questline, apparently, because that sounds epic.
It was really, really cool. Really cool. I enjoyed it. And and this is also what's really interesting, is that because priests and paladins both are so heavily tied to the light, it's really interesting to see that Blizzard made the decision to actually tie their Order Hall questline together. So if you're playing as a paladin, the priests actually come to you and say, can you help us? And so, basically if you're playing, because I've played both sides, I've played the priest and the paladin. And so when you're playing as a priest, like, you actually say, like, we're not going to be able to hold the temple alone. Like, what can we do? And they're, oh, well, we should go to see, like, our brothers and sisters in the Paladin Order, because, they worship the light like we do, and they are great warriors. They'll be able to help. So it's really cool to see, even though they are separate classes, that their Order Hall quest lines came to a head at the same place. So it was really cool. And it was also really neat as a paladin to kind of be needed by the priests, like to go and do something and fight this fight of this amazing good. So it was, they just nailed how it felt to be both a priest and a paladin, I think, in these Order Hall quest lines. So that's all. Sorry. I
was going to say, and as a Death Knight, I got to show up to the Paladin's Order Hall and kill a bunch of them.
What?
Yes.
As a paladin, we do not see that happen.
Yeah, no, I'm surprised, because that would be kind of cool. But yeah, no, you totally, the final quest for the Death Knight Order Hall, you totally go and sack the Paladin Order Hall, because you're trying to steal Tyrion's corpse.
Wow.
Yeah, it's great. It's awesome. It's particularly awesome for my own personal through line, where I started this expansion as a paladin and was like, I'm bored, I'm going to go evil and play a Death Knight. And then I go back to what was originally my class hall and kill everyone.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, I think that would have been so cool if like somehow there was like some event or something that I could participate in like a scenario that was like paladins versus death knights. Although I mean, since it is your order hall, that would be kind of weird because it would be like, well, who gets to win? Like, because that would feel bad as a paladin to lose that fight.
Do you want to know who wins?
Oh well, I can imagine who wins. It's your order hall quest line.
The Death Knights lose.
Oh.
The Death Knights lose.
Geez.
The light is not happy about what happens.
I see.
And spoiler alert for the Death Knight order hall, run away now. Darian Mograine dies again during the course of this, and then you resurrect him as your fourth and final horseman.
Oh, cool.
Because you go to resurrect Tyrion as the fourth and final horseman, but you fail. Mograine dies again. And the Lich King whispers in your ear, what were you? Your horseman was here all along. Res him, and now, and yada yada yada. And you have this awesome scene where your four horsemen come together, and it's amazing.
Oh, man, I have to go be a Death Knight.
yeah, it's great. It's the best. It's the best metal album cover portrayed in a video game ever.
So we can't really wrap all this up like we mentioned. We can't untangle Turalyon's fate from Alleria's fate. So Alleria in Legion, what we've seen so far is exclusive to marksman hunters. It's why I was so disappointed in my very first artifact quest, because the whole reason that, I mean, I was pretty sure that I was going to stick with Hunter anyway, but the whole reason that I chose Marksman is because I wanted to find out what happened to Alleria, and I knew that the Marksman weapon was the legacy of the Windrunners, which is Alleria's bow, so I was like, oh my god, I'm going to go find Alleria, this is going to be amazing. Spoiler alert, you don't find her.
Nope.
You accompany Varisa, who has heard rumors of her sister, and so you actually go to a demon world, and access to the demon world is basically possible now because of the events of the Tomb of Sargeras. So essentially all of the lines between the demon worlds and Azeroth are breaking down and becoming closer together because of the Tomb of Sargeras and the power there and the Legion's invasion of Azeroth. So Varisa's heard whispers from demons that she's presumably captured and tortured, because she's still a little dark, especially after the death of her husband, man. She's treading over on the dark side, but Varisa accompanies you on a mission to go find her sister. And so at the end of that, you find the bow, but not Alleria. But there are signs of a struggle. So Varisa is convinced that her sister is still alive, and she vows to find her. So as of right now, we have not actually seen Alleria in Legion. The only hints that we've gotten are basically that we recover her bow, and Varisa is sure that she was able to escape. So I'm sure that she is probably with Turalyon, or has found her way back to Turalyon, or he came to rescue her or something. But I'm sure that if Turalyon if he does show up in Legion, I'm sure that Alleria will be by his side. So I'm excited for that to happen, because I think if we actually do see Turalyon and Alleria in Legion, if they are somewhere in Dalaran or Suramar or whatever, it will be really interesting to see where they take us, because that could be the start of the next raid. They could take us to Arcus.
I'm so excited.
I'm so excited too. That's why we had to talk about this week.
I have never dove too deeply into Turalyon or Alleria, for that matter, and after having kind of gone into it, knowing this is what we're going to be covering today, I'm not sure we'll ever get a sequel to the Warcraft movie, but now I kind of want them to just cover these events. I kind of don't want them to skip to Warcraft 3.
I know, right? Because that's what everyone is saying. You know, like there's basically Warcraft 2 is kind of the story of Turalyon and Alleria and this war and the orcs losing, and the story of, Thrall and his liberating the orcs from their internment camps and all of those stories. Everyone's like, oh, that's kind of boring, and I just want them to skip to Arthas. And as interesting as Arthas is, and as great of a movie as an Arthas movie would be, I think that there is a lot of really interesting content, and especially knowing now what we do in Legion with how important Turalyon and Alleria have become, I think it's really important to tell that story if they choose to continue the Warcraft movie universe.
I agree. Maybe don't give us a huge part of a movie just about the orc internment camps, because that sounds like a yawn fest.
Yes.
But yeah, we'll see.
It was a pretty yawn fest in the book too. So
it was the most boring Caverns of Time dungeon too, as far as I was concerned, man.
Yeah. I didn't
Everything
even
about
realize that there was a Caverns of Time for the internment camps.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a lore nerd, you should definitely go do it. You break out Thrall.
Oh, okay. Oh, I might have actually done it.
Yeah.
Because Thrall was a slave for oh, I'm totally blanking on his name now.
I believe it was in Durnholt Keep.
It was, and I can't remember his name, and I feel like it had black in it again too. But anyways, it doesn't really matter. The point is, he wasn't in an internment camp. He was a gladiator type warrior fighter slave.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, WoWWiki. The fortress was initially ruled by Lieutenant General Blackmore.
Blackmore, that's it.
There you go, Blackmore.
You can always tell the evil guys because they tend to have black in their names.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that is it for the story of Turalyon and Alleria. And I would really like you guys to send in emails and let us know if you've been enjoying these lore segments, because I know it is my favorite part of the World of Warcraft is, you know, all of the crazy, ridiculously awesome lore stories that are in some cases kind of hidden behind either, you know, novels or quests or, like you said, Caverns of Time dungeon scenarios, like hidden off the beaten path of what people generally tend to do in World of Warcraft. So if you're liking the lore series, then please let us know and email us at amovetv@gmail.com.
Yeah. And speaking of that, let's take a few emails. If you're going to write into amovetv@gmail.com, make sure to include WoW somewhere in the subject line. That'll help us find these. And our first email today comes to us from, it's either Gerardo or Gerardo. I'm not sure which, but either way, G writes, "Hello for Azeroth team. You finally made me cave in and play WoW. Thanks for a great show. But I have a counterpoint in the Illidan episode. While he, or the players, were making the choice to kill his fellow guards for a fighting chance, did he ask them to make the sacrifice, or did he just take their lives himself? He denied them the choice to make the sacrifice, and while it was needed, the way that he went about it was completely reproachable. The same happens in Outland. He keeps making sacrifices, meaning pillaging and killing, trying to get resources to destroy the Legion, without giving any agency to the people that he's hurting in order to fulfill his destiny. He's not making a sacrifice, he's sacrificing others. Others who might have paid the price themselves given the chance. Compare this with a general who sends his soldiers to die without telling them anything to the classic rousing speech for the suicide mission in a movie. Illidan did the former. Keep up the good show. Very entertaining." I don't think we didn't say that he didn't do it. I think we just said that it needed to be done.
Well, and I think that's kind of the distinction that you made that you need to make here. The Illidan quest and the Light's Heart quests are not supposed to make Illidan perfect. The idea is basically to show you that he had a greater path. Like he was not just trying to be the Lord of Outland like we thought he was, you know, like he was actually trying to save Azeroth and kind of put you in his shoes. And it's definitely like nobody's perfect, and that's not what the quests were made to do. I think they were just made to kind of change our opinions and open our eyes a little bit. And I mean, we don't really have any, I'm trying to remember the book, but I can't really remember the book completely clearly now to this level of detail. But I feel like, at least in terms of the Moonguard mages that he sacrifices at Blackrock Hold, I do believe that they very much had a all or nothing sort of a mentality, and you know that's what they were there for, because it was kind of a last stand sort of a thing. So again, I don't actually know what was said to them. I'm, like I said, I can't remember, because there's much more detail in the books as there usually is, and I can't remember exactly, but this is all from the War of the Ancients trilogy, so correct me if I'm wrong, but whether he actually asked them at the moment of sacrifice if they're okay with being sacrificed, I don't think is really the point. I think that it's just that was a final stand sort of a thing, and it was something that they all knew going in, that, like you said, the rousing speech for the suicide mission, just because we didn't see it in that specific case doesn't mean it didn't happen, because I believe with the Moonguard that situation was different. Stuff that he did in Outland, I agree. I don't think that, you know, I think he could have been better at explaining himself. And even in the Illidan book, he is never completely open with his plans or the reasons behind the things that he's doing, even when we get to see his side of things, because he's so worried about either one of his lieutenants being corrupted, like Kalthalos ended up being, or not Kalthalos, Kalthus. Sunstrider.
Kael'thas.
He ended up
Yeah.
Kael'thas, sorry. He ended up being corrupted and brought over to the side of the Legion. And that's what Illidan was worried about, is that, you know, he would either lose his lieutenants, they would give away his secrets, they would be mind controlled. There were so many. I mean, he was being pursued by Kil'jaeden, who is the deceiver. Like, he is basically totally paranoid, and that makes him unable to, I guess, divulge his plans and give people the choice, because he's afraid that then his plans will get back to the Burning Legion. So, I mean, I'm not making excuses for Illidan, but I think he's a complex character with a complex story, and I think we need to remember that. So I'm not saying that he is the ultimate good or anything like that. He's made a lot of mistakes, but I think we need to give him a little bit of credit for basically being the only tool Azeroth has to fight against the Burning Legion, because he has made so many sacrifices.
Yeah, I mean, Zara even brings up how little of importance intentions really are at the end of the day when she's talking to us, when she's asking us what choice we would have made. She even brings up intentions and basically says it doesn't really matter what your intentions were. Yes, Illidan was a dick. He seemed to be reveling in the power that he was wielding and getting extremely cocky after murdering all of his sorcerers. But it doesn't really matter. Still needed to be done. And yes, you could have had a powwow with your sorcerers. And yes, there absolutely is, I think, a dialogue to be had of, well, the agency was taken away from them. It absolutely was. At least as we see it in the game, they're screaming, I'm dying. They're pleading with him. They don't seem to be in on it, at least as portrayed in game.
Yes.
And sure, they could have sat down, had a powwow, and decided who gets to live and siphon the life from each other. What gives Illidan the right to make that choice, to be the one that survives in spite of others. And as foolhardy and as cocksure as he seemed, I do think he is the one. I don't think anyone else could have handled it.
And I think this is the thing, is that he was so powerful and such a gifted sorcerer that he really was the only choice. And I think that it just stems from the fact that, you know, like he had the big agency over the arcane. He was just very, very powerful and had anyone else. It's why he was the leader of the Moon Guard to begin with, because no one else could match his arcane skill. So I think, you know, anyone else being in his position probably wouldn't have defeated the Legion at Blackrock Hold. So I think that that's where it becomes important to know that we are hearing Illidan's story because he's the one that survived, because he decided to make the sacrifices of his Moon Guard. But the reason that we're hearing Illidan's stories is because he made the correct decision. And we have the ability to hear his stories because the Night Elves, the High Elves, everyone survived the first invasion of the Burning Legion, and they wouldn't have if he hadn't made these difficult choices.
Yep. Well said. Want to take the second email?
Sure. The second email comes to us from Kevin, who says, what are your thoughts on the amount of deaths so far in this expansion? We have Ysera, Varian, Vol'jin, Tyrion, and all the Tauren in High Mountain. Well, not all the Tauren, but the Tauren in High Mountain. As we talked about, I think it would have been our High Mountain Embrace the Spoilers episode.
Yeah, where Jocelyn
said... Man, that Tauren death, those hit me hard.
I know, and I didn't even notice. It didn't even register in my mind. I find Tauren so exceptionally boring.
But yeah, there have been quite a lot of deaths. I think the thing that hit me the hardest was probably the loss of Ysera, although I did feel that the cinematic that they had for the death of Vol'jin and for Sylvanas taking over as war chief, I thought that was a fantastic cinematic as well. Really, the only one on this list who didn't get a really great death was Tyrion, and his kind of, and this probably is a pretty big spoiler, but after the events of the introduction to Legion, Tyrion is not actually dead. Tyrion dies later on in the Retribution Paladin quest for the Ashbringer.
Yeah, it is that exact event that was what leads to his death. So you're really not missing much of the story if you don't play a Retribution Paladin. As he does die, and he dies as a direct result of being attacked by Gul'dan's monstrosity.
Yeah, which oh man, that was the worst. I absolutely hate when anyone does this, when they're telling a story where they have a character that you love, that you think is dead, and then someone says, oh, but they're actually not. Now we have to go rescue them. And then you go and rescue them and you know, like just raise hell and lose a lot of people along the way. You get there and they die anyway. I hate that method of storytelling.
I kind of like it.
It's so frustrating to me.
I like it. It's usually pretty effective in getting across the stakes.
I hated it so much because you literally arrive with a whole bunch of paladins and you assault the place where Tyrion is being held and you lose like all of your paladin buddies except for one.
Yeah.
And then, you know, so you sacrifice this whole entire like a garrison full of paladins in order to rescue Tyrion, as you should.
It's not just to rescue
Tyrion's your
Tyrion,
High Lord.
though. It's also to get Ashbringer.
And yeah, to recover the Ashbringer,
which is kind of
still.
important. I mean, as Cenarius said to Illidan, Jocelyn, you know nothing of sacrifice. Clearly, if I've learned anything from your rant, it's you just don't understand sacrifice.
Oh, I was so disappointed because in my head, I was very excited to sacrifice and nurse Tyrion back to health and then to see what he would do in the grander Legion story. And I kind of wish that we had either lost him on the Broken Shore or he was alive. I hate this, like, he's alive, he's not alive, he's alive, he's not alive dance that they did. I didn't like that at all. It was toying with my emotions, Garrett.
The second Legion was announced, and I heard that Ashbringer was going to be the weapon for Retribution Paladins, I knew Tyrion was dying.
Yes, and you know, it was really interesting because there were a lot of people who were saying there's going to be a lot of deaths in this expansion because we get to wield a lot of these iconic weapons. And Blizzard was like, well, no, there's, you know, the chance. And actually, we talked about it earlier. Alleria's bow is a perfect example. Yeah. Alleria is not dead, but we get her weapon because of the way the story is played out. So, I mean, I was kind of picturing something which I believe I don't actually have a shaman, so I could be totally wrong. I apologize to any shamans in the audience. But from what I understand, the elements have essentially forsaken Thrall, so he can no longer wield the Doomhammer, which is why you get Doomhammer. So Thrall doesn't die, but he can no longer wield the power of the weapon because of the events of Draenor and because he used Doomhammer and the elements to kill Garrosh. So,
yep. Yeah. He's made one too many mistakes.
Exactly. So I feel like there was a possibility there that Tyrion possibly didn't die, that, you know, maybe the light has forsaken him or something, or he has a crisis of faith because of the return of the Legion. There's, you know, so many ways that they could have gone with the Tyrion story. And so I was, or even just, you know, him being so super hurt, he could just say, hero, wield my weapon. You have to lead the paladins, you know, like I can no longer fight. My body is broken, something.
The way I had it in my head is not all of the artifact weapons that we're getting are proof that whoever was previously wielding them was going to die, but some of them have to die. They can't all survive and come up with a convenient plot device for you to start wielding the weapon. That some are going to survive, some are going to die, and then in my head I'm just like, well, who's safe? Well, Thrall is clearly safe because they'll never kill Thrall. They'll just
I don't know, because Chris Metzen, like, he's retired now, so they might.
I mean, I hope they do. I'm kind of done with Thrall at this point. I've been mad at him since I've been mad at Thrall since they put Garrosh in power.
Yeah.
So I think it would be interesting to live in a Thrall-less world, which right now he's so useless. I feel like we're living in one anyway.
Yeah, I haven't seen him since the events of the Broken Shore. So I don't, like I said, I don't actually play a shaman, so I haven't had any interactions with him. I'm not even 100% sure where he is, which I also find interesting because we know Sylvanas is in Stormheim, but all the other leaders, I feel like they should be in Dalaran. Like, yeah. But they're not.
Well, I would say that there is strength in your strategy to not put all of your eggs in a literal floating basket.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
It's probably
because I imagine actually if Thrall is with the shamans and Prophet Velen's with the priests, I guess they've probably spread out across the order halls, which kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I know Kalik is with me in the mage hall. But and I guess no one knows where Jaina is, because I was like, I can't remember where Jaina went. She just kind of went poof after the Horde was allowed back in Dalaran, and she got all cranky.
She's sitting in the crater listening to her Evanescence CD.
The crater of Theramore, the crater of Dalaran.
Theramore.
Oh,
listening to the angstiest new metal with a female singer that she can find.
That makes sense.
Uh,
But in terms of Ysera, I think this one, we talked about it in our Val'sharah episode. This one I didn't see coming. I was really upset by. The cinematic did her justice, but made me cry. Like, it was just, this one was rough, I think.
Yeah, and everyone listening, I'm not just hating on Thrall. It's like I've always found him very interesting. Obviously, he's a big player, but like just for the sake of story, there's certain characters that get so powerful at some point they need to be removed from the story in some way, shape, or form, and that's what I think they're doing right now without killing him by taking away his ability to do anything other than punch really hard.
Which he is still a gladiator, so he does still have combat skills.
I wouldn't want, just because the elements are gone, I wouldn't want to pick a fight with Thrall.
Yeah.
He is an orc at the end of the day, and even like orc janitors could break me in half. So
orc janitors.
I was just trying to think of like the most.
Have you actually seen Orgrimmar? They don't have janitors. Just take a look at the slums, man. Oh dear.
Well, that's more the goblins' fault because they love their pollution. But anyway, so yeah, we kind of went off on a big. But I mean, overall, the deaths I think have been great for the expansion. It really hit the ground running before the proper expansion even launched. It planted its flag in the ground and said, "Hey, listen, there are real stakes with the story we're telling here." And it helped me personally get really interested in it because I love Varian. I like at the point they have taken Varian away from us was the point I have liked him the most. His arc has been such a boon to World of Warcraft because this is a story that we have seen really just start, develop, and end entirely within World of Warcraft. It didn't live or die based on Warcraft 3, which a lot of what was strong about WoW originally, that was the case. All the heavy lifting had been done by Warcraft 3. But Varian's story and Garrosh's story has been told entirely throughout WoW, and I think the two of those have been really good examples of the stories that they can tell in World of Warcraft. And Varian's death at the launch of Legion really just did wonders for me to get reinvested in Warcraft's story.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that when in the War of the Ancients, in those novels, there are so many characters that are just beloved in those novels, and you lose them, and it's heart-wrenching, but it really shows you how powerful the Legion is. And I think that if you went into the Legion expansion and you didn't have big character deaths, if all we were losing was, that contingent of nameless paladins over there and, that bunch of mages that got too close to a portal that exploded, then you would just kind of feel like there were throwaway characters and, you're still alive. All of the iconic leaders are still alive. Everyone is still fine. So you're probably just going to win, and that's going to be the end of it. And I think that this allows us to actually say, like, we are losing dragon aspects. We are losing leaders of factions. We are losing, the High Lord of the Paladins. And, there's just so much more weight to this expansion, and it feels like no one is safe. And I think that now that they're in that kind of a place, it makes their storytelling more interesting, because you can't really say like, oh yeah, they're never going to kill Thrall. Well, they might. You can't say they're never going to kill Jaina. They could. And, I think the Legion is the kind of storytelling engine for them to do that. So I'm interested to see where they take it from here. I'm sad with some of the characters that they killed, and I talked about it on Embrace the Spoilers. The death of Ysera was unfortunate. I think they killed Vol'jin before he really had a chance to show what he could do as war chief. He felt very squished into the space between Garrosh and Sylvanas in an expansion where we didn't really see him do much. So I think that was an unfortunate death, but like I said, it moved the plot forward. So I think that they've done a good job, and the deaths were needed, but that doesn't make the deaths any less impactful. And even Varian, whose story I didn't really know and didn't experience and was never part of the Alliance, I still think his death was handled very well. It was for a noble cause, and I cared. I cared when we lost Varian. So I think that speaks to the weight of the death and the ability of Blizzard to tell a story. The fact that a Horde player who didn't know very much about him was moved by his death. I think it speaks volumes for Blizzard.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and also too, if you want to do something new and interesting with the roles of the leaders, considering how a new leader is elected and when they are, this is pretty much it. Like, you have to kill someone unless you're Thrall and you're an idiot and you put the complete wrong person in the seat. But yeah, I mean, especially on the Lion side, it's a king. There's only one way to get a new king. So, and this forces Anduin into a big new role, and I'm anxious to see where they go with that. So far, there hasn't been a whole lot done with it, but I'm sure it's only a matter of time before that. Or who knows? Maybe he'll be Vol'jin, and they'll just kill Anduin, and then someone crazy and really interesting and a fan favorite will become the leader of the Alliance.
Like Greymane?
I would be
He's
super
crazy.
into that. He is crazy. He is clearly the opposite of Sylvanas. You know, the equivalent to Sylvanas for the Alliance. I don't think that's going to happen though. There's been way too much time spent building Anduin up.
Yes, that's true.
So I'm really looking forward to see where they take Anduin, because he's a really interesting character. I can see where some people, especially bloodthirsty, filthy horde players like Jocelyn, might find him boring because he's not a bloodthirsty orc Nazi. But
I don't find Anduin boring at all. I think his character is actually really interesting, particularly in Mists of Pandaria in the War Crimes novel. Seeing his interactions with Garrosh, and also just seeing him grow up under Jaina, and his fights with his father in some of the novels. I think he's a really interesting character. He has so much compassion that it's almost a fault. Yeah. So I'm interested to see how. Because, I mean, normally when we see characters in a lot of storytelling, this isn't just Blizzard's kind of trope, but I think often we see their faults as, like, you know, negative things. They're usually like they are too power hungry, or, you know, like too driven, as Sylvanas is, to save her own people, and you know, narrow-minded and too focused, and kind of like have blinders on, and those are the kind of negative traits that we usually see. So I would be interested to see a character like Anduin whose negative trait is actually the fact that he has too much of a positive trait. So I'm interested to see what they do with Anduin and his empathy and compassion.
Yeah, no, I was just playing that for theme and an example, because I know plenty of people who are just like, no, war and orcs, Anduin's boring, he's all peace and love. I wasn't actually sure where you stood on Anduin, so that's interesting.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, Varian went the opposite way, right? As a result of Anduin, as a result of the influence of Anduin, Varian became a more metered, a more centered leader. Because when Varian is, first rediscovered, and after the events of the comics, and being forced to fight for horde slave owners, basically, he was very angry, a very just bloodthirsty leader. And Anduin being the way that he is, partially because of the tutelage of Jaina, pre-Theramore,
pre-Theramore Jaina,
has talked Varian off the ledge and made him a really good leader. I think someone extremely fit to be king. And that's been interesting, and everything that revolves around Anduin I found interesting, just because of Jaina as well, and the flip her character has made. Mm-hmm. So it's like, do we think he will be successful in maybe calming Jaina down, maybe having the same effect on Jaina that he had on his father, which is hilarious now because it was all Jaina's doing.
Mm-hmm. I think that if anyone can get through to Jaina, it's going to be Anduin, but I think it's going to be a really interesting to see where they take the story, if they take it the route that Anduin kind of talks her off the cliff, or are we going to take the route of Jaina actually jumping off the cliff and going full evil and becoming a raid boss? Because they could go either way with the Jaina character right now, because she's really on the precipice of that, do you go full evil and fight the horde, or do you, come back and help and fight the Legion? And so she's an interesting character in and of herself right now.
Yeah. But anyways, thank you everyone who wrote in. Again, you can email us at amovetv@gmail.com. Make sure to include WoW in the subject line. Don't forget, everyone, you can subscribe to For Azeroth. It is its own feed now. Embrace the Spoilers is back. We are running a Kickstarter for it. We are covering Westworld at the moment. But this is its own thing. So don't forget, you can go subscribe on iTunes, anywhere else you find your podcast other than Stitcher, or on youtube.com/amovetv. If you're listening on iTunes and you're digging the show, drop us a 5-star review. It helps the show out a lot. We've been doing really well in the iTunes rating so far. We'd like to keep that up. So this week, thank you to Azax, Red Fox, and Rectify, who said, "For Illidan!" So clearly disagreeing with Gerardo earlier. But you can catch us live Monday mornings, usually at 12 p.m. Eastern time. We were a little late today. And next week, we're not actually sure when we will be recording this, as Monday we will be on our way back from BlizzCon, and then Tuesday we have Embrace the Spoilers and the Angry Chicken, and Wednesday I'll be doing Overwatchers, and we'll figure it out, is what I'm trying to say. There will be an episode next week. It will be later than usual, but I promise you it will make it onto the feed. And we'll talk.
Well, we're going to have all that BlizzCon stuff to talk about, right? So
we
can't miss it.
There's going to be a lot to discuss. We may even have to skip a lore talk. Maybe. But who knows? We might get a glimpse of Alleria, and our brains will catch on fire, and we'll have to talk lore again. But we'll see what happens. Anyways, I hope everyone's enjoying it. Jocelyn, where can folks find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at JossPlays. You can find me right here on twitch.tv/AMoveTV every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern for my general gaming podcast, The Gamers In. You can find links to everything else that I do at jossplays.com.
Awesome. You can find me on Twitter at GarrettArt. There are 2 R's and 2 T's in Garrett. You can also find everything else at amove.tv. Go check out Embrace the Spoilers. Like I said, we have a Kickstarter up, and it's at bit.ly/backets. That's BACKETS for the winter movie season. Go check that out if you want more Embrace the Spoilers. But how did we sign off last week? It didn't work because the timing was off, so we're not even going to try it again. So I will go with my usual good luck, have fun, and Jocelyn, you can say whatever it is you would like.
For Azeroth!
There we go. Skype timing is hard.
It's really hard, guys.